Now, you remember when we were in Qatar together and I told you I had breakfast with Neymar's dad, and then we did a chat with Neymar's dad through an interpreter, and he was a good guy, I felt, but you weren't having him because...
He was surrounded by a bunch of concubines, wasn't he?
Well, he was surrounded, yes. He certainly had a big following that morning down in the breakfast area. But you were somewhat miffed that Neymar's dad, for some reason, was benefiting hugely financially from his son's gain.
There's a balance to be had. I believe that I, as a parent, shouldn't live through the deeds of my son. I also understand that and there's no one likely to have the best interests of their own son more than the father, but I just watched him strutting around in the image of his son as a result of his son, and
I thought, no, you were nowhere near it.
I saw him.
You were out playing paddle tennis.
I saw him.
You didn't see him.
I saw you disappear up his backside, headwise.
Well, the reason,
but the bottom line is no. I think this. Listen, I get it to some extent.
Yeah.
And I get why people like Jude Bellingham's father would be involved in guiding him properly and giving him proper parental advice and keeping some of the parasites of football agency out of his ears. But when I see people strutting around that are ultimately only benefiting as a result of what their children are doing, I find that just a little bit, especially in the football world where I know how corrupt it can be and how corrosive it can be.
I think probably all dads would do that, would they not, though?
Well, I would like to think that my achievements in my life will be sufficient enough for me.
Well, the reason I ask, you probably heard it in Tom Clayton's news bulletin, and it's everywhere today. The father of Erling Haaland,
they had to throw some peanuts.
Yeah, Alpha Inge Haaland, has denied allegations of throwing peanuts at Real Madrid fans the other night, and was removed from his seat by security at Wednesday's Champions League match. There is a video on social media at the moment. It apparently shows Alpha Inge Haaland goading Real Madrid fans after De Bruyne's equaliser, and he was kind of cupping his ear to them like this before being escorted out of his hospitality seat. Right. In fact, the Telegraph's chief sports writer, Oliver Brown, goes further. He says his behaviour in the stadium, goading Real supporters, and at one point appearing to make an obscene gesture, is as mortifying as it is bewildering. Why, on the grandest night of his son's life so far, would he choose to act like some leery corporate freeloader spoiling for a fight? Now, I think that, I'm not sure. Oliver, you obviously seemingly saw more than we have been privileged to see on social media. But, I mean, how aware and bothered should players be of their family's conduct? Is that a relevant question?
Well, look,
here?
First and foremost, right, I do like the end part, which is the corporate freeloader, because that's probably precisely what he was. But have you ever been inside football stadiums when you're someone that gets recognised and has to listen to piles of abuse from a bunch of randoms that you should just have to control yourself on? I would advocate for not giving people any reaction because it empowers them. But by the same token, if you've been sitting there listening to probably a group of Spanish fans, having been to Spanish games, they can be quite vociferous. And listening to them pile on to the fact that maybe your son isn't worth the money that the mancity have spent on him and this, that and the other, they give him a bit back.
Well,
and lo and behold, did he take someone's eye out with a peanut? That must be offensive weapon. They should have searched him on the way in. The peanut police.
That peanut's a bit too big,
absolutely.
Mr. Inge Haaland.
It's a bit too salty. Could take someone's eye out with that.
But having said that, it's not an argument, Simon, that he's as proud as punch that Erling, his son, is out there. Be dignified in the moment. Stand and smile. If they're turning to you and giving it to you, surely you just stand and smile.
I would always advocate for that because I think you give people far more than they're necessarily entitled to.
Yeah.
But by the same token, people are individuals and they can react as they see fit. And Erling Haaland is a grown man. He has no more need to be worried about what his father's doing than anyone else who's got a father in the public domain, whether Chris Eubank Jr., sometimes grits his teeth with the utterings of Chris Eubank. We are men in our own rights, and people can do and act as they please. I had my father, God rest his soul, constantly at Palace saying and doing things that I wasn't always comfortable with. If I had a secret and it was a problem, I'd tell my father, he'd tell everyone else, and it would be no longer a secret or a problem. So you have these things, but notwithstanding that, I don't think it should be something that players or people that have fathers that are influential or eminent or in our vicinities should necessarily go, perhaps he will say to his dad, a little bit less, Dad, come on. But notwithstanding it, is it a news story? Does it need Oliver Brown to tell us
having said that,
how obscene it was?
Oliver Brown of the Telegraph says, what adds to the strangeness of it all is that Haaland Sr. is also Erling's agent. Real Madrid executives have consulted him assiduously, while the Spanish press cling desperately to the notion that his son could be persuaded to come to the Bernabeu as soon as next summer.
Okay.
So, I mean, they are, his every move they are following in Madrid.
Well, that's not going to stop them from signing him, and his hero status at Real Madrid, if he lands there at some point in the future, will be determined by his performance on the pitch and his attitude, and whether he's standing in front of flags talking about golf being more important to him. I doubt that will be the case. I
just think it is a bit much if he reacted in a way that's not really befitting, being the father of a big star in football who's out on the pitch doing his bit. I mean, just calm it down. Dial it down.
I would agree with it that there's a better way to operate.
I think so.
I also agree. I also believe that some of these football fans have got just a little bit too much of it, and they can't take it when it's given back. And at the end of the day, if there's a necessity to report this, which we feel there is because it's been picked up, and look at it in its when I hear a news headline saying that Erling Haaland was in a football stadium throwing peanuts at people, I can't really take it very seriously.
No.
And it will not stop Real Madrid from lining his grasping pockets with the benefit of his son landing at Real Madrid.
He has grasping pockets.
Yes. Well,
so you put him in the same category as Neymar Senior.
Correct.
Grasping pockets.
Yes.
They're only doing what they feel is appropriate on behalf of their sons.
Then donate the money to the local charity, given the fact that their sons are playing football and it's their sons the ones that should be profiting.
Come on, what a massive business opportunity.
You just happen to be there. You just happen to be there. He's the fruit of your loins, so now he's going to give you your pension and your dotage. What a sad little world it is sometimes. Ultimately, that's money that could be spent in other directions, couldn't it? Rather than giving him £20 million or whatever. Don't you remember? Remember that lovely little trinket that Mino Raiola told us, or we heard, that ultimately, in order for Haaland to move, there had to be 50 million for this, 20 million for him, and 20 million for the father. My. How deserving are you?
Well, hang on. Darren in Maidstone's just about got it right. Every father in football is living off their son. There's no father, well, very few fathers, that can earn more than these boys. Let's have it right, Lord Jordan.
Well, good. What a wonderful way to look.
Well done, Darren.
We always want our children to emulate us. We just don't want our children to be responsible for our well-being, do we? It's our job as parents to put them into the world. Our job as parents to protect them and give them opportunities. Is it really their job to give us one?
Here's the thing. If you were the dad of Erling Haaland, you'd screw the life out of Real Madrid financially.
Then that's your business, and that's wonderful. And what poor sort of a son you're going to have that's going to have to support you through your dotage. But my son is going to find his own way in the world. I'm going to have found mine. And if his achievements eclipse mine, which undoubtedly they will, I'm not going to be sitting there with my bowl out saying, Daddy's turn.
Would you not back your son commercially every which way you could?
I would back my son
to the last pound and pence.
I would put my son. What I would do is, if you give a man a fish, he can feed one person. If you give him a fishing rod, he can feed about 50, right? So the bottom line is I would give my son the tools to be able to go and look after his own self in the world. And I'd sit there and go and say, there you go, son. Daddy doesn't need any help because he's made his life. I've now given you yours. You are now in a position you can negotiate. You can pick the best professional advisors around you. You can get the best guidance. You can make your own decisions because you're a big boy. And I won't be there with my cup.
Right, okay. What a load you've already put on the shoulders of your young boy, Ruben. Who's my dad? Oh, you're kidding me. It's 11 o'clock.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.